Okay, we live. I'm just gonna wait for a few people to come in. I hope I'm clear because I went live because I was using my phone and my tablet, and every time I get 10 minutes in, it would cut off. So I said I got to get this in live. Plus, I'd like to see some people's feedback. And I really wanted to tackle this topic, ADOS, the movement. So I'm just gonna wait a minute, but I don't really need to wait because I just made this. I'm making this video so I can go ahead and upload it to YouTube, actually. But I said, let me go live and we can have this discussion. Because a lot of people are seriously confused. People are in competition mode. People is tripping on the founders of ADOS. You know what I mean? They tripping on personalities instead of principle, right? So we want to be about principle, right? And I always say, you judge a man by his intent, okay? What is the intent of the ADOS movement? That's what you judge it by. So a lot of people misunderstanding. That's why I keep telling people to, if you want to know about ADOS, the movement, what it's about, why don't you read the website? Why don't you listen to the explanation from the horse's mouth, from the founders, so they can tell you what their intent is. They've explained it. I'm not sure what people are confused. So I was going to get on here and rant and rave because I got a little bothered with a few of my peers. Usually I don't get bothered with peers, but some of my peers just kind of got on my nerves today, even though I still love them. And I was going to get on here and rant and rave, but I said I'm just going to be calm and explain. And after I'm finished, especially after I read the actual agenda, you know, when you got people who sit down and write an agenda meticulously to put forth, you know, for the reason of justice and legal reasons, you got to respect that. And that's what the founders of ADOS did. Okay, so a lot of people are not understanding. ADOS is not like some religious clique that a lot of these fuck boys out here be into. Arguing with Moors, Hebrews, and Abos, which is short for Aboriginal. ADOS movement has nothing to do with that funky fuckboy shit. It doesn't. This is grown folk business for an purpose. It's not to play, something you gotta claim or you gotta follow the founders. What you got to do is get out the way and support the movement. Get out the way is what you're gonna do if you don't know who you are. ADOS movement stands for American Descendant of Slaves. That's what ADOS stands for, American Descendants of Slaves. I'm a descendant of slaves here in America. 90% of the people listening to my voice is a descendant of slaves in America. Can y'all hear me? Let me just make sure, let me read a few comments. Okay, somebody, yeah, I guess. Okay, so 90% of us, I'm a descendant of slaves here in American soil. That's a fact. So my heritage is West Central Africa, but in reality, sometimes you got to have a conversation. Let's just be real. In reality, I'm an American. I'm an American citizen. So I'm a descendant. I'm an American descendant of slaves. And that's okay. So I am what the movement is pushing. It's pushing for a group of people. It's pushing for you. Let me tell you who ADOS is and who ADOS ain't. And it's not like when ADOS defines who ADOS is, that they're against anyone else. They want to bring an agenda to justice for review. It's a movement that's just laying a groundwork. It ain't all figured out today. It's a movement that's laying a groundwork for a form of reparations, a form of repayback, and is more so for helping to close the wealth gap between DOS, people like me, my mama, y'all listening, my grandmama, all my homies I grew up with. It's an agenda to close the wealth gap between that group of people and everybody else. That's not positive. Stop me when you hear me say something negative that the ADOS is about, or their agenda is reaching for. Just stop me and let me know. Okay, check this out. ADOS. Let me tell you who ADOS is. You know how when you see a slave plantation picture and you see a bunch of slaves in a slave field picking cotton. They picking cotton. Have you ever talked to one of the elders about picking cotton and how much painful it is and how much hard work it is and back-breaking work it is? If you don't have the proper techniques to pick that cotton, you're getting pricked all day long and it's painful. When you seen a picture of all them blacks in that field who bled, fought, and died in them fields, those are ADOS people. That is a group in America. The Ethiopian immigrant who came here because she was fortunate and her parents had some money and she's been here a generation and grew up here, although we consider her black, she is not ADOS. We're not against her. Her bloodline and bones and blood and family didn't fight, bleed, and die. Ethiopia just abolished slavery in 1972. Look it up. Ethiopia abolished slavery in 1972. I'm not exact. I'm close. They're not ADOS. They're not the group of people bringing an agenda for the purpose of justice and legal purposes. Do you understand? Why should Karen, just an arbitrary name I throw out here, benefit the same way that the descendants of those people who was picking that cotton in the field? Why should she hop on their backs and get all their benefits? Because you know, any economist, no matter what race, will tell you 75% of the wealth of America was built on the backs of slaves. Did you hear me? 75% of the wealth of America was built on the back of slaves. So you telling me Susie Q from Eritrea, Ethiopia, East Africa, whose forefathers weren't in those fields, get to reap the payback and benefit like I do with my people who was in those fields? All those men who after slavery was abolished, right? And they developed a peonage system. And they would arrest these black men for any old little petty thing. And once they're arrested and imprisoned, they can do slavery all over again under another name, the peonage system. So when they call you, look at this old peon ass nigga, this old peon, he's calling you a little punk. That's what peon came from, the peonage system. All those black men for 100 years in America and their children and wife, who are the same people that was in the cotton fields picking cotton, are different people in a different group of people than the Ghanaian who just got here from Ghana, whose family was fortunate enough to pay for them to get here. Because just regular Ghanaian people can't just come over here like that. You got to be a little special and have a little money in the family to get here. They can't reap the benefits that the group of people who you see in the picture in the cotton fields. My people, me, my grandmama, and all them people. So ADOS is not against any West Africans, any other immigrants, because when they say immigrants, people's mind only go to, oh, these Africans. There's all kind of immigrants, all kind of European immigrants. You got to lay the line down and say, ADOS gets these benefits, not everybody else. When you take an agenda to the United States or for justice purposes, because check this out. What do you think the LGBT community did? That's a group of people, a subgroup of people in America who took an agenda for justice, for benefits, for their group, not everybody else's interest, for their group. So for those people in the fields, all those men in the peonage system went through Jim Crow, all those specific people who got chased out of Oklahoma when they was bombing Oklahoma, these specific people need to be paid back for what they paid for their bloodshed. Yes, they do. So this is the group that the ADOS founders is representing with this movement. So I said, people haven't read the literature, so I said, let me just bring the website. We don't have to lie on ADOS movement just because people don't like the personalities, right? So people personalities over the principle. When it's the people's or the group's intent to be righteous, to do righteous, who would be against a benefit for those group of people? I can be Pan-African. I'm a Pan-African. Pan meaning all. I'm for all Africans throughout the diaspora. That's what being a Pan-African is. I'm for their benefit and their progress and their movement, upward movement in wherever they're at, wherever diaspora they're at. I'm for that. I'm a Pan-African. They're not against Pan-Africans. You ain't got to say, I'm not a Pan-African no more and I'm ADOS. It's not a thing where you pick and choose in some child's game. This is grown folks' game. This is business. It's not personal. That's what they've said. You weren't listening? This is business and not personal, and it's not a child's game. It's not just some plaything. It's people come with agenda. I'm about to get to the agenda because a lot of people got to apologize. But about ADOS from their website and what they say. Let me just read real quick the first paragraph. ADOS was started by the brain trust of Howard graduate and host of the Breaking Ground political show, Yvette Carnell. People have a problem with Yvette Carnell. They don't really have a problem with the movement, but people's responses and attitudes is based off of the personality and not the principle of what Yvette Carnell is doing and his righteous deeds he's doing. They feel, hell, she leads to movement. She's going to be my leader. No, it's not about no leader and follower thing. Y'all need to calm down with that dumb shit. That's child game thinking. Okay, real quick. It was started by Yvette Carnell from the Breaking Brown Show. Yvette Carnell used to work in politics. Her platform is politics because politics moves the people forward. Okay, and UCLA alumni and attorney Antonio Moore, who hosts the weekly show Tone Talks. And I don't care if you don't like Tone Talks. I'm not that familiar with him, so I'm not vouching for him personally or his behavior. Fuck his behavior, you know, that old shit. I'm talking about the platform and agenda these people laid down to take up for a cause of justice. Let's continue. And Antonio Moore, who hosts the weekly radio show Tone Talks. ADOS, which stands for American Descendants of Slavery, seeks to reclaim, restore the critical national character of the African American identity and experience, one grounded in our group's unique lineage. Certain people had a unique experience outside that others didn't have. This is the group they're talking about. Is that okay for you? That people want to represent ADOS members? Is that okay? Okay, so character of the African American identity and experience. We had a certain experience, a unique experience, one grounded in our group's unique lineage, and which is central to our continuing struggle for social and economic justice in the United States. Social and economic justice. It's about closing the wealth gap. Who would be against that, being a sane human being, a sane black man? You don't spit no fire on that as a sane black man. Somebody's talking about putting an agenda together to close the gap, wealth gap, and you scoffing at it? In a form of reparations. Now, people say, oh, well, what about everybody did this for? Jamaicans, the Haitians, and Africa's not a unified place. It's 54 countries. In law and justice and legality, you got to be specific. These people are laying out a specific plan, okay? You can't sue white supremacy. You can't sue white people. That's not an entity. Those are frivolous words. You can't sue a continent. You can't sue Europe. So they got to specify. Right? So if you're a Jamaican, you take it up with the British. Nobody's going to get in your way. But for ADOS members, we have an agenda that people are taking to Congress, and it's election season. That's why. Did you get mad at the LGBT for fighting for their rights? What you get mad at ADOS for? What you get mad at your forefathers for? Your people's rights. Should Sally Sue from Ethiopia be paid back for what my people in picking cotton beat did? No. That's what it's about. No one's against anybody. I think I lost my train of thought real quick. Okay, yeah. Social, economic justice. Now, to the agenda. That's who ADOS is. Here's the agenda. It's simple and plain. This might be the boring part. So if you don't have an attention span and you're not true and really trying to learn about what ADOS movement, you can click off now. Because I'm about to do some reading, something you guys didn't do, and that's why you're confused. It's an agenda, a laid out agenda on their website. I got it posted. Listen, as a specific group. What group? Those people picking cotton, those in the peonage system, those afflicted with Jim Crow laws. That's a certain group of people that everybody didn't go through just because you're considered black. It's a lot of immigrants considered black didn't go through a certain people's struggle. If every group could take things to justice in Congress, then why can't people like us? Without people being mad and bothered. Okay, here goes the agenda. Let's just read it. As a specific group with a specific justice claim, the ADOS movement demands a specific agenda with policy prescriptions that address the losses stemming from the institution of slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, convict leasing, mass incarceration, and immigration. These are problems that afflict ADOS. You, your people, your uncle. We demand a new deal for Black America, which includes, but is not limited to, This is the agenda and meticulously written out plan that you fuck niggas who just run your mouth on social media ain't into. You guys ain't into politics and no real work. Get out the way. Get out the way. Here it go. We need set asides for American descendants of slavery, not minorities. When they say minorities, they're talking about everybody except white men. No, white women ain't benefiting off me. Immigrants, Irish, Russian, whatever, immigrants ain't benefiting off what the people in the fields did. This is our group. It's nothing wrong with separating shit. Let me start off. I didn't lost my damn place. We need set aside for American descendants of slavery, not minorities. A throwaway and minorities, which is a throwaway category which includes all groups except white men. That categorization has allowed Democrats to use programs like affirmative action as giveaways to all groups in exchange for votes, giving away to all the immigrants, any minority, women for your vote. That's not my group. Them people are not my group. Okay, where am I at? Okay. The bribery must end, because it's bribery, really, when you really think about it. That begins with a new designation on the census with ADOS, and another for Black immigrants. Black immigrants should be barred from assessing affirmative action and other set-asides intended for ADOS, like LGBT community. They got their set-asides. This is for us. You get it? So it's nobody against the immigrants. We just want our own benefits. That's all they saying. Y'all got shit backwards. Okay. Black immigrants should be barred from assessing affirmative action because, and truly, when affirmative action was initially set up, it was affirmative action was for ADOS people like you and me, who went through, whose forefathers were afflicted in American slavery. That's what affirmative action was for. Everybody else joined on our backs later. I'm not lying. So I don't want to, personally, I don't want to be bunched in with everybody no more, sometimes on some things. We need a group and an agenda to take to justice also, just like the LGBT community did. Okay, Black immigrants should be barred from assessing affirmative action and other set-asides intended for ADOS. As Asians, as should Asians, Latinos, white women, and other minority groups. In addition, ADOS hiring and employment data must be demanded for all businesses receiving tax credits, incentives, and governmental support. Did you hear that? As well as governmental agencies, national, state, and local. Okay, another point of the agenda. Once affirmative action is streamlined as a government program only and specifically for ADOS, the program should be fully reinstituted. This is about the Voting Acts. I'm not a political junkie. I don't know the history of the Voting Rights Act, but the Supreme Court decided wrong when it was gutted in the Voting Rights Act as Atlanta Journal-Constitution article, and it gives a link to the article. Let's move on. Black businesses. This is important to listen to. Listen to this. Black businesses only receive. This is about closing the wealth gap. Everything is not about games and shit. This is about close. Listen. Black businesses only received 1.7% of the $23 billion in small business administration loans. They have SBA loans, small business administration loans. Basically, $23 billion was allocated for that. Black businesses only 1.7% got any of that money. We're 14% of the population. 14% of the people, of black folk, ADOS, those people in the field, those people going through peonage systems should receive 14% of this SBA loans money. Check it out. Under President Obama, SBA administration, 1.7% of the $23 billion in total SBA loans under President Obama's having after previously received, it was 8.2% under George Bush, but 1.7% under Obama. So ADOS movement is putting forth that ADOS members make it mandatory, pass the legislation that we get 15% of all small business administration loans. Did you hear that? So if black folk, these people who went through hell in America, get 15% of the small business administration loans that the government hands out, that's called closing the wealth gap. Anybody mad at that agenda? Is insane. But I know people didn't read and didn't think this through because they're thinking emotionally and not rationally. They're responding emotionally and not responding rationally with logic. Let's move on. So I said in the beginning, stop me if I'm wrong about anything or something don't sound good. Okay, so 15% of SBA loans, not no 1% like we got. That's called closing the wealth gap. We seek a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure plan targeted to ADOS communities, included but not limited to the Black Belt, Flint, Michigan, and it's 3,000 other cities with poisoning rates higher than Flint, Michigan. People don't know about. So they're also asking for a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure plan targeted for certain areas of ADOS members. Certain areas where peoples of population like me rebuild their infrastructure, make things right. This is a form of reparations, a payback for the inequality, the poor living standards, the poor neighborhoods, the bad infrastructure. What's wrong with that? That's a positive thing. You niggas didn't think about that shit, so you're mad. You're mad at the founders. Okay. Next, residents of majority ADOS areas that have been poisoned under the federal, local, and state government's watch, such as not only Flint, Michigan, but Denmark, South Carolina, and others, must be financially compensated for the benign neglect of the Environmental Protection Agency and the government in general. The Justice Department must also institute protections which exact heavy fines and federal criminal prosecution for future offenders. That's all for your benefit. What would you be mad at that for? You didn't know, huh? You didn't understand. I get it. I get it. I get it. Next point of contention they have written out in this meticulous agenda for ADOS people, me and you. Mass incarceration has wreaked havoc on Black American families. By some accounts, there are literally more Black, they got the link in here, Black males in prison than all, Mass incarceration has wreaked havoc on Black American families. By some accounts, there are literally more Black males in prison than all women are incarcerated on the entire planet. That's deep. There's more Black males in prison than there are Black women in prison on the entire planet Earth. That needs some changing. Check this out. To give context, there are 20 million Black males, and they largely descend from slavery. Yep, that's true. While there are 4 billion women globally, both groups producing the same number of incarcerated. The reinvention of slavery through the use of the 13th Amendment is chronicled by Douglas Blackman in his PBS documentary, Slavery by Another Name. That's the documentary I was talking about that breaks down the peonage system. They call it Slavery by Another Name. It is our position this must be corrected. We demand an immediate assessment of all the numbers of the ADOS prison populations at the state and federal level. We also demand that there be review of punishment, bail amounts, sentence lengths, amounts of time served before parole is being levied at an unfairly high, levels on ADOS based on gender and race for similar crimes to other groups. We demand that there be real prison reform in the form of investment into counseling, job trainings, and rehabilitation for our incarcerated. So they talking about giving help for your family members that's locked up, taking this agenda to Congress. Who could be mad at that? Okay, next, former President Reagan committed to strengthening the capacity of the historical Black colleges and universities to provide quality education in Executive Order 12320. President Obama undermined that commitment with changes to the PLUS loan requirements. We call for legislations to triple the current federal allotment to HBCUs. Schools like Georgetown, built by slaves, have an endowment of over $1 billion. This is a transfer of wealth from ADOS to white. Our agenda demands that the federal government fully endow our remaining HBCUs in a dollar amount that meets the budgetary needs of each institution. In addition to ADOS students who attend HBCUs should receive a discount in the form of a 75% tax credit, given that our inability to pay the rising cost of education is directly tied to the racial wealth gap coming from slavery. ADOS who choose schools outside of the HBCU network should receive 50% of the government-funded credit. So if you go into an HBCU, who should get more funding? And the ADOS people, me, my kids, our family, who go to HBCUs should get a 75% tax credit. If you don't go to HBCU, you get a 50% tax credit. That's good. That's a fucking agenda. That's called work. Get out the way of this work. Okay. Findings published in USA Today concluded that top universities graduate. Let me just sum this up. Silicon Valley is a techie area. A lot of techie companies work there. These techs that work there graduate from these universities and get paid a lot of money. It's in California, Silicon Valley. Look it up. There's a little documentary on it. What does it say in the stats? Let me just be sure the stats. Only 2% of the technology workers at Silicon Valley companies are Black. And guess what? Most of those are immigrant Blacks, not ADOS, like me, not our graduates. In this little rich uppity area, those high techie people are immigrant Blacks. They got that benefit. They get that benefit. So we want to close that gap and make sure that these companies be mandatory to hire ADOS people like me and you and Black folk who descend from those people who was in the cotton fields, who descend from those people locked up in the peonage system. Those are ADOS people. That's you listening. So that's a benefit for you and your people. What the hell would you be mad for? Why wouldn't you support that? Okay. Did I skip this? Oh, mandate that the government's advertising budget include Black media. There is no ADOS, me and you, community without, excuse me. There is no ADOS community without our own media. Got to have our own media. We got to get in on the government's budget for advertising in media. Incentive through legislation action that all major companies spend 10% of their advertising budget with ADOS media in exchange for tax cuts. In addition, mandate that 10% of government advertising for governmental agencies, armed forces, and other ancillary programs go to the majority of ADOS-owned media companies. ADOS people, ADOS college debt should be forgiven in the same way losses were forgiven for the banks on Wall Street. These are called forms of reparations and paying back. So ADS members, these people who went through hell, not immigrants, not minorities, not women, black folk like me of my stock and kin, my group who went through hell, can get this equality and close the wealth gap. That's all good. They even got for health care credit, for counseling, free therapy for all ADSO members. And it just goes on. And, you know, it's just detailed and meticulous. And I just want to say, anyone against that is insane. But I had to realize that people didn't listen to the founders. People are going off bad gossip. He say, she say shit. Fuck boys who's in competition with everybody. People thinking somebody's against this and somebody's against that. I don't want this person to be my leader. Oh, this person came up with this agenda to bring to justice, but we didn't. I'm mad. I'm hating. These are all feelings involved with this misinformation campaign against the ADOS movement. It's fear-mongering, misinformation, confusion, and everything. Get out the way. That's what ADOS is. Now you know. A lot of people need to apologize. They never read the literature. They never read the agenda. Let me see. I see some comments here. Is anybody saying something? What's the question? Because I can't read comments when I'm talking. You know. What's up with y'all? Hear me loud and clear. That's all I wanted to say. It was hard doing this on my tablet or phone because it was cutting off after 10 minutes. So I said, I just got to go live and do this and get it out the way. So what's up, family? I see y'all all. And I just wanted to share that. And if you just really want to know, I keep telling people, go to the horse's mouth. ADS movement is not against anyone. They told you that. Yvette told you that. They said if because it was some Jamaicans who were fighting for reparations. That's fine. ADOS supports that. We follow that. Get yours from the Brits. Get it. We support it. So we're not against that. Get yours. But you can't go to court and say, I'm taking just like I said, just to make it simple. ADOS members take the United States of America to task, to justice. Jamaicans, the British. Haitians, take it up with the French. And that's how you have to specify. So ADOS founders have specified and laid out the groundwork for reparations because it's election season. So we also want to get elected officials on our team who agree with the agenda of ADOS, which is a righteous agenda. It's a fair agenda. It's a form of reparations. It's real, and it seems to be having legs. This is why you have pundits on TV making comments, giving the general public the opinion that ADOS was about some Russian bots and some old bullshit. Like it wasn't some real people who were founders of it. Now, I must say this. People are going to say, oh, they co-opt the movement from a previous organization or a man named Norris Shelton, I believe his name was. out of Kentucky who went to court for descendants of American slaves, and he had an agenda, and he wanted to get a new type of ethnic label, I think it was. I'm not exactly sure. And he took it to court. So it's possible ADOS could have piggybacked off him, but they moved into another direction. And if they did piggyback off it, it was a movement or an effort that had kind of ceased and was in the past and not moving and progressing. So I'm not here to judge that, and I don't even have time to research or worry about that. It's possible they can, but I'm not tripping. ADOS is a proper, a righteous, and a good, and a needed movement for African Americans, Black Americans. See, I'm fine. I always tell people I consider myself African American. That's why it's ADOS. I am an American citizen. I have West Central African heritage. I'm also cool with Black American, because when Black is not used to say that's your nationality or your ethnicity. It's just a term used as a description, like slang. Like somebody say, hey, this person just shot up a church. What y'all want to know? Was he Black or was he white? So we say, hey, Black American, white American, Mexican American. So I'm both Black American and African American, and I'm a Pan-African, and I'm realistically and factually ADOS. Chief X, I'm out.